All right, everybody. So I have muted you all just for now. Just as I say hello and good afternoon. Thank you for joining us for our bi-monthly parent town hall call. We are still waiting for Haley to come on with some updates in the first few minutes of just information for you all, but thank you all for joining us. I am here. I am Emily. I am the outreach assistant for the Parents and Families program, and I'm helping Haley out with monitoring and providing community conversation like this. So if any of you have any questions, I can address them right now until she comes on. So, and you can unmute yourself if you do have a question.
Hi, Emily. This is Rochelle. I actually do have a question.
Yeah. Hi, Rochelle.
It's my son's last semester this fall. So he actually has two classes that are on campus, which are lab, which is understandable because he is an engineering major. I'd like to know what are the safety precautions that Sac State has in place for this?
Oh, yeah. So because the update is that so few classes are actually going to be online, it really depends on what kind of class, like you're saying, lab, and how often they're meeting and in what kind of environment they're meeting, whether it be like a lecture setting or physical lab. I imagine that the Department of Engineering has their own policies in place, but they have yet to announce that directly to your student. As soon as it becomes relevant and then they actually have that process in place, it seems like they're still working on that. Your student will be let know and will not be put in any indoor non-social distance situation that would not be approved by the CSU as a whole, let alone Sac State. So I don't have any direct answer for that because it is depending on the department and on the type of classes. But I imagine that not only the engineering department, but any other department that any of your students are working with and are a part of that may have an in-person element will have to announce that directly. And your student can find out about that through their Sac State email and on their student center, like where they have the information about where that class is meeting. Maybe they have a little bit more information on how they're meeting, etc. Does that answer your question, Rochelle, as much as I can?
Yes, it does. I'll definitely have to touch base with him to see, if he has already received that email from the engineering department. So last question, when I was in college back in the days, so if someone graduated in the winter, you then walk the next semester in June. Given the COVID-19 situation, has that changed?
So actually, anyone graduating in winter, they actually, Sac State has combined fall and spring graduations to a spring commencement. That was a few years ago, unrelated to COVID completely. But anyone who is graduating or has officially graduated by the end of this semester, or if they graduated in May 2020, will have the opportunity to walk in commencement for May 2021.
Great, thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. All right. Okay, a few more people are coming back in. Anyone else have a question right now that they have for me? Again, I'm the outreach assistant. I am speaking on behalf of Haley for now, but not for Haley, on behalf of, not for. Chris West, I see that you're here. Thank you for joining us. Yeah, anyone have a question?
Yes, Emily, hi.
Hi.
Mrs. Styros. Because majority of classes are virtual, is there a limit in the number of students that can attend a class?
Yeah, so generally speaking, no, because it seems like if it's a virtual class and it's a class that's impacted, it seems like professors might be allowing more students in. It seems like something that might happen. It's a question that we've gotten a few times actually, really, and it's a really good question. Right now, enrollment caps per class are capped at the usual amount that would be allowed in the classroom. So if it's a lecture class, for example, it is a larger amount of students, like more than 100. That's still allowed, but if it's like more of a discussion-based class, it's usually capped to like 20 or 30 students. And they aren't Sac State has not changed that policy at all for virtual instruction, not only because of the opportunity and the possibility, as slight as it may be at this point, to meet in person again. We want to make sure that we're all socially distanced and that we're not overcrowding our classrooms and not allowing students very space in that discussion. But also so that anyone who is going through the process of obtaining a degree it doesn't expect that they can get a lot of things done and get all their classes in one semester. We don't want to overload the students with several opportunities to join a class like that. And so everything is the same as if we were in person. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, just wondering, in your experience, when a class is weighed, how many usually can a professor take in addition to the cap number?
In addition, oh, so you mean like if a student is waitlisted, do they have a chance of getting in? Is that what you mean?
Yes, and
Yeah.
how many would the professor consider taking in?
Well, it really depends on the type of class. Like I was saying, like lecture classes, if there's enough seats, virtual seats in the classroom, they'll add as many people as they can up until whatever population capacity is for that particular room. Same thing with our individual classrooms. And so like in my personal experience, I've been able to get into classes that were smaller. I am a graduate student. That were capped out at 25 students. They allowed up to 5 more people from the waitlist to come in. With larger classes like 40 to 50 students, they allowed another 6 to 10 students come in. But again, That's really up to the professor. It's really about space capacity and what they're able to do in terms of giving feedback, grading, and workload.
Glad to hear that. My son is actually, one of his classes is waitlisted, and he's number 2. So I'm glad that you said there's a possibility. There's a possibility, high possibility. That's good.
There is a possibility, but I do recommend that your student actually reach out to the professor if they can, or make sure that they, if they can, crash the course and go to that first session. Make a connection with the professor, do as much as they can to get into that class, especially if it's really important to them.
Actually, we've been waiting for that to find out the professor's name, but up to now, it's surprising because the names are not posted yet, and the books are also not posted in the book. When do they start posting the books that's going to be used for the classes? Up to now, it's only 1 out of 5 in his class have been posted, which is chemistry.
Oh, okay. Are you looking through the Hornet bookstore and through the Student Center? Yeah. It might take some time. I've had classes where I didn't see that online until the week before class, but I did have enough time to order those books and get them in before the professor needed them to be used. So I would say to your student, keep checking, and if they communicate at all with the professor beforehand, ask right away, and also check their Canvas. If your student has access to their Canvas site, ask them to see if that class has been published and if there's any information regarding that class, and they might already have a syllabus up and have some information about books.
Okay, thank you. That's one we wanted to find out who the professor is. Thank you, Anna.
Okay. Yeah, no problem.
Leslie. Yeah, I have a question.
Leslie, is that you?
Yeah. I have a question related to textbooks also. I noticed on my student's account, it has listings for 3 of his classes. One of them is like Stat 1. Is that for a book he's going to receive from the bookstore, or is it for a license, or?
What was it called again? Repeat that.
There's for 3 of his classes on his, like his account. It shows charges from Sac State's bookstore for like Stat 1. It has one Stat 1, materials, $35. 3 of his classes have that. Are those going to be licenses, like software licenses? Are they going to be books that are mailed to him, or?
It's most likely not going to be books mailed to him, because students are on their own in terms of ordering, receiving those books, because we have the option to get those books from other sellers, be it like a local bookstore or Amazon or whatever. So those fees that are attached to those particular classes might have to do with materials, like software, like you mentioned, any other kind of online source, or if we were in person, like some sort of like art tool or lab fee that goes along with the materials other than books that are needed for the class. So yeah, I think that you could get a breakdown of that through the Canvas site, again, if your student has access to that yet.
Okay, and so there's 3 classes of that out of his 5. So but for all of the classes, he still needs to check at the bookstore or some other source to buy textbooks.
Yes.
Those are not textbooks. Okay.
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
good question though. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone else have a question right now? I'm going to reach out to—
I have a question. This is Vivian.
Hi, Vivian.
I was wondering, my daughter is going to be a senior, and has to do with housing.
Yes.
So, and I'm not sure if you've heard from other students having difficulty getting out of a lease.
Yes, is she with an apartment? Student housing?
Yeah, the private student housing that's off campus.
Mm-hmm. We have heard about complications with that just a little bit, but oh, hi Haley, you're here. We just got a question about housing. So sorry to interrupt, Vivian, but I wanted to make sure Haley got a chance to say hi.
Hi, everybody. Sorry about that. I was coming from a class that I'm teaching, and appreciate your patience. We have a question about housing. How can we help?
I was just wondering, this is Vivian, and my daughter was staying has a lease currently with the private student housing apartment. And I'm wondering if you've heard difficulties with other students that are in a lease and having to get out of the lease. And if you have any suggestions.
So Vivian, unfortunately, yes, I have heard about this comment. I've been hearing about this since COVID, since we went virtual in March. I unfortunately don't have good news for you, I have to tell you. The 2 fathers in particular that I've been dealing with, neither has been able to get out of their lease without basically breaking the lease. One of them actually has a lease for next year that they signed already, but of course the year hasn't started. I even have reached out to advocacy groups for the state of California to little avail, because I would expect that there would be some sort of forgiveness given COVID. There's certainly been forgiveness for people being able to pay their rent for a little while, right? So I think, no, I haven't had any, I don't have any helpful feedback at this point. I will ask you, Vivian, do you mind sharing what the name of the apartment is?
Yeah, it's the Lark.
The Lark. So that's another parent I'm working with is also at the Lark. I think that there's strength in numbers. I always think there's strength in numbers. So if you're okay with it, I'd like to connect you with that parent.
Yeah, and the kids have gotten together themselves, and they're creating a coalition. And so
Okay.
I've also written to my, assembly people and my state representatives.
Yeah, I kind of feel like we have to take it to some different level because it's just doesn't seem fair. Vivian, do you mind sending me in a private chat your email and or phone number, whatever you feel comfortable with?
Yes.
Okay.
I think I have your email, so I'll send it to your email.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you.
I have a question. So all the classes seem like for my daughter is all virtual, and some of her class, I think half or more than half, the teacher indicate that there's no assigned time. So how is the kid gonna learn and interact with the teacher with question and answer?
Emily, good question. So that's an asynchronous class, and that option is actually perceived as being a little more helpful to students. But what it means is that the professor records themselves on a lecture like this. So let's say a professor is talking. The student can basically watch the content on demand, like a video. And then the interaction happens through Canvas or through some other way online. So the professor may ask them to comment on a discussion, and the way that Canvas works is you can choose as an instructor if other students can see responses. And so you could say, like, tell us what one thing you learned, and then comment on 3 other students' posts. And then they will go through and credit, like, oh, you did the first part and you commented on 2 people. Another way is just simply through individualized meetings with students throughout the semester, through group work and through comments on homework. So those are a few ways. Of course, I would encourage your student to utilize professors' office hours to be an advocate for their own education. If they are stuck on a concept, early, do that early, because it is pre-recorded.
But I don't think this is is a good idea, because I have online classes myself in the past, and sometimes the teachers do not respond and right away, and it would take weeks, and you're like stuck with a question, or someone who answers not necessarily totally 100%, correctly. You know what I mean? After a while, it's like you're beating around the answer to get the correct one. And I think this definitely will affect her. Since they can't even attend class, at least have a live virtual like last semester, and that they can actually talk to the teacher they hear, and that's as close to real as possible. But this way, I think it's bad idea.
Well, I appreciate you sharing. I took down what you were saying as notes that I'll pass along as concerns to academic affairs and the provost who manages all the faculty. What we've found is that having students sit in a virtual session for 2 to 3 hours, while it may seem like the closest thing to actual class interaction, it's not. Students get something called Zoom fatigue. And I think a lot of evidence is showing that students do much better if they kind of are able to take in the content, take a break, go kind of try to apply the material on their own. And, I think a lot of the data, so some of the classes are synchronous, which is what you're saying you would prefer. Some of them are. And your student certainly has an option to change their schedule around starting on August 10th if they want to. They could look for synchronous classes. And I could show you how to do that. In fact, I can send you an email on how to look for synchronous classes. But I do think that in a virtual environment, like, we're really finding that students do better with the ability to manage their own time and to take breaks.
I know my daughter, she won't be able to do that well. So wait until the last minute. And that's what happened to one of her class, even though she did really well, but it wasn't, her, the last report that she was supposed to submit, she waited really until the end to do, and that's what affected her grade and just her personality. I know it doesn't work, so that's why I'm asking about that. So can you send me a link, or how do I look for those classes?
Sure, I will send you a link and a screenshot instructions for how to look for synchronous classes. Can you send me a private, your email in private chat?
Sure, thank you.
Thanks. Thanks for sharing. I think that there are many people who feel the same way.
Hi, Haley. This is Mrs. Terrace. What is synchronous classes? I apologize. We're not even familiar with that term, synchronized.
Sure. Hi, Ms. Tyros. So synchronous means that they will be happening at a particular time. So if you see a class session is listed as 11 to 11:50 a.m. synchronous, then it means that student needs to be sitting in front of their computer from 11 to 11:50. If it's asynchronous, then there is no, the content will be pre-recorded. So the student will be able to watch it. They'll still have due dates. So they'll be managing their own time. But if they want to watch the session at 3 in the morning, that's up to them. Does that make sense?
Yes. So when he signed up for classes, they're actually time specified. So that means he needs to be there at that time when he wants to interact or watch the live. It's actually the live moment.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And, professors may adapt, they may, I think also there are some faculty that are trying to do a little bit of both, which the student won't know until they start the course and they see the syllabus.
Thank you, Haley.
Sure. What else? What else can I help people with? Well, I'm happy to report that there will be a number of volunteer and service learning opportunities available for students in the fall that can happen virtually. So this is both through the Community Engagement Center and through PAVE, P-A-V-E. Emily, if you can put both of those links for serving and volunteering in the chat. So the Community Engagement Center is doing a big push on civic engagement and voter registration. If your students are interested in that or any other volunteering work, they can sign up through the Community Engagement Center. They have lots of opportunities. And then, and these are good resume builders, particularly for newer students. PAVE is a tutoring and mentoring program for high schools, grade school, middle school, high schools, K-12 schools in the Sacramento and surrounding area. And Sac State students are paired up with younger children who are learning one-on-one, and they can tutor virtually in an environment like this. That's an awesome opportunity. If they want to sign up for PAVE, you can check those links out. I see a question from Jennifer, and she is asking, how do the students get a student ID? That's a great question. I'm not sure. I'll have Emily check it out while we're on here and see if there's something to put in the chat. If we don't have time to find it, then we will email it out in our next update. I saw another student come on another parent come on who is dealing with the same problem with property management company in terms of breaking a lease. So if you could send me your email address, I'll put you on the same email. I'm just trying to connect parents who have whose students are at the similar or at the same apartment complexes. Hi, Chris. Chris is saying the coaches indicated there would be sports practices. Our housing at Upper East Side Lofts has graciously given us until July 24th to cancel our lease. Our student hasn't heard back from coaches to confirm if athletic practice will continue. Do you have any further insight? Because our deadline for lease cancellation is tomorrow. I actually got something in my email. Let me check. Chris, did you get any sort of Zoom invitation for Meet the Coaches?
No.
Okay.
And we've been asking her, honey, have you heard back? No.
Okay.
And and she's on varsity, so I'm assuming she would have heard.
So it looks like, actually, is she on cheer? Is that what she's on?
No. She's a rower.
Row.
And we love the coaches. So I'm not complaining. I just want to know if there's any confirmation.
I don't have confirmation, but I think that we should be able to get it. Chris, have you actually reached out to the coach at all?
Not me personally. I know our athlete has, but it is summer, so we want to respectfully honor the fact that it's their break too. And so we encouraged her to reach out. And if it comes down to it, to be honest with you, Haley, if the sports are going to, resume in the spring, because I know there's going to be, if school goes back, if the students are allowed back on campus in the spring, we recognize the fact that there could be a sudden rush for everyone to get housing. So we thought, well, maybe we should just pay it, just to make sure she has housing. And we're fine with that. We're just not really sure on, because she did get a summer job on the athletics. And so please know, everyone, we're not grumbling. We just want a little, more insight, I guess. But no, I haven't personally reached out. Would you suggest that, Haley? It seems like.
Yes. So I do think it's a time for an email. I don't mind sending an email as well. But I'll tell you what I see in my email. I see a Meet the Coaches for Spring Sports Zoom session, which I can't tell who it was sent to. So maybe it was only sent to Sac State staff. And it's on Wednesday, August 26th. So that's a ways away.
That's after the deadline, yeah.
Yeah. But I'm going to take different pieces of information and try to deduce what's going on. So rowing is on here. Coach Connors will be talking, and they're going to talk about coaching in sports and rowing. And the Aquatic Center, which is where the rowing team practices, did a soft open this past weekend, which has gone well. These two pieces of information indicate to me a strong likelihood that rowing would happen in the spring. Now we're still waiting, right? We're waiting for the chancellor to give any sort of final detail, which he said he would do in October about spring. These pieces of information indicate to me more of a likelihood to the yes than to the no. But I absolutely would send an email right now to Coach Connors, and I would actually send it to every single coach's name that you can find. And if you need help with that, let me know.
I might need help with getting access to the coaches' emails, but let me ask you this. So I know in the first part of the summer, they said that it would resume for practices. Have you heard of any of the athletics actually starting practices in the fall, or just waiting and starting, because their season doesn't start until the spring anyway? But I know they had a pretty rigorous 6-day-a-week practice, which was incredible for her in a positive nature.
Yeah, I actually haven't. So it's been a little while since we've had our last manager meeting, but the athletics information has been fairly back and forth. So it seems like every time I hear something about athletics, it's like green light, red light, green light, red light, these programs, not these programs. So it's pretty inconsistent. That's why I think going to the coach directly is pretty good. And whatever the coach tells you may not be.
Well, Haley, what I want to be cautious of, and this is, I think you can appreciate this, but I don't think you have children old enough to be in college. I'm sure you don't. But there's this fine line between, our student's going to be a senior, not overstepping our parental boundaries because they are considered to be young adults now. Do you see what I'm saying? But then on the other hand, yeah, mom and dad put the bill for housing and school and everything. We don't put any financial expectations on our children. We do finance school for ourselves out of our own personal budget. So I just don't, you know what I'm saying? There's that fine line. Yeah. And being in education myself and, having done adult ed, it's like, okay,
Well, Of course, I appreciate you asking that. So Chris, my stepdaughter is 18 and she'll be starting college this fall. So I kind of get it. I guess what I'd ask you is your daughter around? Is she near you? And can you have her send the email? Because I guess what I would say is an email needs to be sent to the coaches. The reason that there's some urgency in a response needed is because the deadline is tomorrow for housing and the payment is substantial. And so I appreciate your sensitivity to empower your daughter. Let's ask her to do it. Is that possible?
Yes, that is. Thank you. I'll be honest. Here's Mama Bear kicking back in. I did ask her, Haley.
Well, then tell her.
I know. Parenting 101 now.
It's so hard.
But it just, yeah, because she is so responsible in so many areas. And I think, too, she loves her coaches. And, she's respectfully not wanting to hound the coaches either. Because, they'll tell, I'll never forget the day she said that one of the teammates showed up with something and says, "You're not put that on there." So she wants to be respectful and not be, and I don't want to be the parent that's, calling the coach, because they are also great. And we recognize their dedication and their honor to the kids, or the students, I'm sorry. So, and there's that fine line with athletics, Haley.
Yeah, absolutely. People don't. They want to be in charge. But I think, sometimes, like, what are the best ways to communicate urgency? Sometimes a dollar amount helps, right? Like if you just say this much money, like deadline tomorrow.
Can we not pay $1,300 a month in a lease? Right, yeah. So, okay, well, thank you. And I'm sorry, everyone, because you got this big old long athletic question, but I appreciate the insight.
Thank you, Chris. Also an important parenting reminder. Okay, so I got a couple people's email addresses for housing questions. What other questions do you have? Any questions about classes or fall being virtual?
I have a question. My daughter, after her freshman orientation, her schedule, she only has 12 units. She's an incoming freshman. Is that normal for them to only get 12 units, or should she try and add another class? I remember I had 15 units normally.
So it's considered 12 to 15 units would be considered normal. 15 units is actually what we strive for. What is her major, and do you think that 15 units would be a challenge?
Her major is business finance. So I know she's, I don't know, I just asked her, how come you only got 12 units? And she's like, I don't know. So you said August 10th is when they can start changing their schedule?
Correct. And I'm not sure why she only got 12 units either.
So maybe we'll contact a counselor or something and see if we can just see if we need to add another class. I know she has like a math, econ, an English class, and another business class.
Absolutely. So has she ever shown you her student center?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So in the student center, there is this little drop-down tab that says academic requirements, and it shows the major requirements. And so she does not need to contact an academic advisor to add a class on the 10th. She can do that on her own. Now, what class, right? You want it to be a strategic class. Mm-hmm. So she would look at that list under academic requirements. Be sure to hit expand all so she can see the classes that will, she won't be able to take upper division classes yet if she's an incoming freshman, but make sure that she's taking a class that counts for a GE or one of her GE areas. And if I were you, if you've got a good relationship with your student, ask her to sit there and like drive on the computer, and you can sit on the side and look at it together, because that tab is really interesting. There's a ton of information there. And if students do it right, they'll be looking at it their whole time at Sac State for guidance.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks, Julie. 15 units helps them finish in 4 years. So good question. Magda is asking, when will the decision be made regarding online versus in-class instruction for spring semester? Magda, mid-October is what Chancellor Timothy White said. Okay, what else? Hey, Tammy, nice to have you join us. Nice to see you. How are your students doing? How are they feeling about fall? Are they talking about school? Are they nervous? Are they frustrated? Are they in a routine at this point?
I'll speak. Sorry, I'll speak for my daughter. She's an incoming freshman. She's on the soccer team. So she's renting a house with some of her teammates, and she's gonna have a partial experience for the fall, which is kind of nice. She'll be doing her distance learning for all of her courses, but she's really excited to just be able to be on campus a little bit, even though it's just for practice and games. But she's excited. We're excited.
That's great. That's good. Thanks, Rochelle. I'm happy to hear that.
Oh, actually, that was Tammy. This is Rochelle, though. I do have a comment. So my son's actually graduating from mechanical engineering this fall. So from time to time, he does complain. You know, he informs me that because he's a hands-on major, it was challenging for him this past spring semester to actually complete his classes. He did, of course, and because he's graduating in the fall, he is happy that he actually has 2 labs that are on campus. It is, as part of your senior project, you have to work with, other classmates. So it is frustrating for him and his classmates.
It absolutely is frustrating. Is he interacting at all with either the department or his professors for job experience?
So he actually found an internship on his own. So fortunately, right after his spring semester, he actually started an internship. So unfortunately, he was not able to find one on campus, but he did luckily get an internship until end of summer.
Okay, and it's in his area of study?
Yes, it's in engineering. It's not mechanical, it's more like quality engineering, but yes, he was able to get an internship.
I think I think that's awesome, and I think that's really excellent for the other parents on the call to hear. I think I'm happy that he's going to have some labs in person as well. I think that this is an important time if students can to try to, this isn't going to work for everybody, but if students can try to find a supplemental activity to supplement their education with practical real world experience, like an internship in their field, it's going to benefit the students, as it always does. But in the virtual environment, if they're not getting what they need from their classes and their professors, then they at least have someone who's actually doing what they want to do, who they can follow up with and ask questions. I would like them to be able to say, here's what's happening in my classes. I'm not getting, my professor wasn't able to explain it to me. Can you talk to me a little bit about this? So I'm hoping that he has that sort of relationship and can continue the conversation with those people, even if the internship ends.
That sounds great. Yeah, I will. I know that he has a great relationship with his supervisor because he's applying for grad school. So I think that it's wonderful if, that he was able to have an internship and, get those letters of recommendation for grad school.
That's awesome. Did you have a question? Or I feel like I didn't answer any question.
Is that for me, Rochelle?
Yeah.
Yes, no. I do have a question though. This has nothing to do with, my son's comment on having to work or attend class virtually. I did ask the question to Emily previously, and she answered my question. This is regarding, I think because I'm in research, I'm always worried about my son's safety, his safety precaution, being on campus. And Emily mentioned that he will be attending, I informed Emily that he will be attending on-campus lab, and she mentioned to me that if I wanted any information or if my son needed information on safety precautions, the Department of Engineering would need to be contacted. But I mean, I'm curious, holistically, I'm sure Sac State has precautions or a protocol set before any student can actually, attend on-campus lab or classes.
Yeah, I mean, there are already, and when you say safety, I'm assuming you mean COVID virus related.
Correct.
Okay. I've just had so many years of it being like police, public safety. So yes. Yeah, so I've already seen some instructions online. I can't say that I know them exactly, but things like labs will be socially distanced. Everyone will be required to wear masks and gloves. There will be cleaning by, I think, janitorial crews between classes, and there will be like more time between classes to allow for the cleaning, things like that. We have talked, in management meetings about over the last couple months about the feasibility of doing things like taking everybody's temperature who's coming onto campus, and that's not feasible. Of providing personal protective equipment to everyone who's coming on campus, and that's not feasible from a cost perspective. Tammy knows it. So we're definitely thinking about it. Risk management is involved in these groups. In these conversations, as is Joy Stewart James, who's the director of the WELL, which includes she's the director of the health portion of the WELL, which includes student health and counseling. And so they're thinking through that, but I can say for sure that the requirements of social distancing, masks and gloves, extra time for cleaning before and after labs are going to be there.
That's great. You answered my question. Thank you.
Thanks, Rochelle. We got a question in the chat from Elizabeth asking if areas like the library, the WELL, the bookstore, campus dining are open or going to be open. So they're not open currently. Well, the WELL is open right now and will be for basic medical appointments. Okay. The services that the WELL offers in terms of mental health are available virtually. I've heard that they have some appointments in person for therapy, for counseling, but that's, they're really trying to make things virtual. Library services are available virtually. Our librarians are amazing. Students can access many thousands and thousands of resources through logging in through the library, logging into their account through the library, and they can make an appointment, or they can just during business hours chat with the librarian as well. But no, the building's not open. The bookstore is open online, and they are also mailing books, but they're not open. And campus dining is actually right now. So if you're thinking about restaurants in the University Union, those are not open. The coffee shop and other little independent businesses on campus, those are not open. Now, housing's open. Students are allowed to move in and to live on campus in the fall. So dining is in the process of basically determining demand, and how do they provide food for that. So in terms of campus dining, if they have a certain number of students living on campus, then they will open the dining commons. If they don't, they will find a different way to provide food, probably through the I think it's called Courtside Marketplace right there. But in terms of actually being able to get food going on campus for these 5% of classes that are offered online, no, there will not be anything like what we've been seeing in the past. There are the vending machines, which is not sufficient. What other questions do we have?
Haley, this is Mrs. Tyros again. You had mentioned in previous meeting that the professors were undergoing training on the virtual classes. My son did tell me that it was not a very productive. His classes were not very productive since it felt like he was just doing most of the work, meaning very little assistance from the professor. So I'm hoping if you can just give us a little bit of an input on the training that they underwent so that they can be better equipped in providing improved education to the kids through virtual setting.
Sure. So a lot of the strategies for effective virtual teaching came out of two places. Came out of experience to rush in the spring and make an in-person course into an online course, which was not ideal, right? And then sharing student experiences, gathering student data, and seeing what worked and what didn't. And then the other place it came from is going to the instructors who are already teaching virtual classes and doing that effectively and borrowing best practices from those that have been in this situation and weren't forced to adapt really quickly. So those are the two places the data has come from for the training. The training involves basically taking primarily lecture-based courses where a professor just talks at the students, maybe using a PowerPoint, and helping coach those faculty into how to be more interactive, which includes not requiring students to sit in front of a computer for 3 hours and stare at the screen. So how to do activities in their home. So they'll present, basically, the idea is to present a concept and then let the students go out into breakout rooms using Zoom, right? Using technology to discuss a concept. Maybe having designating a student leader to lead the discussion and then come back and share. Then step away from the computer, have a time to reflect and maybe do something in person. Those are some of the examples. Also, training on the technology tools we have available. So at Sac State, that's absolutely Canvas and Zoom. For classes, particularly like engineering courses and chemistry labs, for instance, they may have additional software that your students are going to be asked to purchase this fall. This would probably be for not first-year students, but maybe I would say like third, fourth-year students in courses. So training on utilizing virtual software to simulate in-person labs. But the idea is really getting students to do something with their own education, whether it's research online, incorporate a video, consider different learning styles. So not all students do well with auditory learning. Some really need the visual, and incorporating short videos is a great way to help demonstrate concepts. So those are some of the trainings that faculty have been undergoing to really make class a more interactive experience. We really hope to see a tremendous adoption rate of Canvas, which means we already had about 80% of faculty using Canvas, but that's where students get their online, their grades online. And it's great for everyone to be able to see how they're doing, and it's super efficient for a professor to use Canvas to grade. So we hope to move that 20% that weren't using Canvas to actually use Canvas as well in the fall. I hope that helps answer your question.
Thank you so much.
Let's see, I see a question from Diana. She's saying she's a freshman parent. Thanks for joining us, Diana. Welcome. Welcome to our Hornet family. While buildings and centers are closed at this moment, would you think it's okay to walk through campus during the summer while taking safety measures, mask, maintain social distance at all times? Diana, yes, absolutely. Go see the campus. You know, are the restrooms open? I don't know, but I will say that there are people on campus, like our campus police are there. There are people who work in housing, and I think some of them are there. There are people who work in the administration building in Sacramento Hall. Those people are there. There are people in payroll in the human resources building in Del Norte who have to be there. So there are people on campus. I've heard some people walking through and like at the end of the semester, let's say in May and June, some students who were graduating who got their grad caps and they wanted to go take graduation photos going on campus. And I heard from a lot of those students and families, they were actually surprised how many students were there. So yeah, go do it. Go see the campus. I wouldn't be surprised if you see other people there, but I would do some research beforehand to see what restrooms are open. What other questions do we have, or do we have any experiences you just want to share how your students are doing? Or how you're doing? Okay, everyone. Well, thank you so much for tuning in. It's great to see you. We'll wrap up here and we'll see you again in a couple weeks. If you have any questions for our parent town hall Zooms, to all our freshman parents who are joining us, thank you for coming to see us. For our parents of our continuing students, thank you for being a part of our Hornet family. We love to have you here. Great to see you. Let me know how we can help. I'll get emails out to those of you who gave us your email addresses. Stick around for anyone who has questions, but thank you. Thanks for joining, everybody.